evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reid. I'm here with a special edition of Community and Technology in honor of September being Emergency Preparedness Month. And we have a very special guest with us today to talk about that, Mr. Wali Abdun Noor. Wali has been involved in radio communications and emergency communications for quite a long time, decades in fact. And he's kind of the founder of so many of the initiatives that are going on in Harlem and the Bronx. But Wali, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and your background.
All right, thank you for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here to represent some of the work that you and a lot of other dedicated people have done to get emergency preparedness brought to the forefront in Upper New York. I got involved with it initially with the Community Emergency Response Team back in 2005, and from there, actually, I got the seed was dropped about community emergency. So from there, we started the Citizens Emergency Response Network. We wanted to do that because the Community Emergency Response Network is operated by New York City, and basically, we needed a little broader ability to be able to spread out into the community, and our hands were a little bit tied with the Community Emergency Response team. Everything had to be authorized by the city, and so we were seeing that there were things that needed to be done, that we needed to be able to have a free-handed. So that's why one of the reasons why we started the Citizens Emergency Response Network. And this is not to say that, there was anything wrong with what the city was doing. I mean, the city had to look out for itself. And when I say that, I'm talking about like different things like with insurances and things like that. And that's quite understandable. However, in a real serious situation where you have to make a quick decision, sometimes you may not have the ability to be able to have the time to be able to call down and go through the red tape that it takes to authorize something. So we felt that we wanted to be able to move as we saw the need was. From there, we went at that particular time. I was working at radio station WHCR, and that was during the time when Sandy hit New York. And by being part of the Community Emergency Response Team, that's that city group, I was a radio operator, and I was able to monitor some of the activities and some of the responses that were going on during Sandy. And it really shocked me. It sounded like a battlefield out in Rockaway. I don't know if anybody here is listening to this program that happened to be out there, but I think that they can identify with the amount of chaos and the danger and all that was going on out there at the same time. I mean, I was listening to people coming from Staten Island with boats trying to rescue. I was listening to like fire department getting stuck in the mud, listening to the police station underwater, um, people on the second floor of their house hearing the water on the floor. They're on the second floor and they could hear the water hitting their floor. So that meant that the whole first floor was underwater.
Now, what were you listening on, Wally? You said you listened. How were you able to hear these communication?
Okay, it's a two-way radio system that actually was at that time was put together by Citywide Disaster Services, Citywide One Disaster Services.
And we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary in a month or so. I believe that was 2012, October, November.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they were actually the first ones to work with the CERT, that's Community Emergency Response Network. I'm going to say CERT from now on so it's not so confusing. They were the first ones to work with CERT on their communication platform. And so I had one of their radios, and just about in all emergencies, all recent emergencies of that sort, Citywide Disaster Services has been on the scene to help with communications. And so I was listening to their two-way radio system, and that they were on the forefront. As a matter of fact, the owner of that company, he set up Citywide Disaster Services. He has a communication company, and having that company, he had the ability to be able to set up a whole outpost, so to speak, with radio communications and repeaters and everything. And he was in that outpost at the time when Sandy happened, and he said he was watching the cameras in his house as the water was rising until the water came and cut the cameras off. Wow. I mean, he was looking at his house going underwater. So that having hearing experiences like that going on, knowing that they had that type of communication system out in Brooklyn and Far Rockaway, I felt that we needed to have something like that up this way. And so as being part of City College's WHCR, brought that idea to Angela Harding, who is the station manager there, and she agreed that that was something that we could do. So from that, WHCR emergency broadcast team, which you are the head of, came about. And so what that was about is that working a communication system in an emergency is a lot different from just working a regular radio program. So we spent a lot of time training individuals to be able to stand in at the radio station if a serious emergency occurred. The average DJ and the average program people weren't actually trained. Some people were not interested. Some people did not have the time, whatever. And so we got a group together, and that formed the station. The station became like a headquarters for emergency radios. But now what we needed was people out into the field. so that we could report back to the station, because you're saying, well, what's the big deal? You had WINS, or you may have had WOR, or one of those stations giving out information, but they're not gonna tell you what's happening on 132nd Street, or they're not gonna tell you what the situation is on 145th Street or on 168th Street in the Bronx. Um, they're gonna let you know what's going on downtown. So our uh, idea was that we would be able to give emergency information as to what was going on in our community. And so, in order to do that, you had to have a group out in the community that's reporting back to the station. And that's where Harlem Emergency Network came into existence. So that was a group that they had. We had we have a radio system that connects back to WHCR on two-way radio, and so information as to uh, what's going on in the community in an emergency, the needs that may be needed at a particular place, and people would say, well, you got 911, but in a real emergency, 911 may not be working, and so we are like an auxiliary to 911. So from there, Harlem Emergency Network has been working in Harlem, spreading the word, and has participated in several of the emergencies that have happened. The gas explosion, the flooding on 145th Street, uh, uh, there's quite a few things that uh, the Harlem Emergency Network have been involved in which we have helped people in our community. So a couple of years ago now, we decided to spread this kind of system up into the Bronx. So we had a Harlem Emergency Network. So now we moved into the South Bronx, and now we have the South Bronx Emergency Network. And so this is kind of where we are at this time.
Mhm. That's a fascinating story, Wally. You're going back almost what 17 years, 2005, and then 2015, and now we're in 2022, and you still added building these community emergency networks growing into the Bronx. So tell us about SBIN, the South Bronx Emergency Network, and some of the challenges and successes you've had in putting that together.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that all of these uh, organizations, first of all, they weren't really funded uh, with any serious money. We were able to get a couple of small grants, and I'm talking about all of the organizations that we spoke of recent, in before South Bronx Emergency Network.
Mhm.
Um, the thing that helped us was the dedication of the people that are involved, and also our city college really played a role in it. Um, uh, we have a uh, group called um, oh man, you should help me with this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You're not talking about WBT.
No, I'm talking about uh, your business. Uh,
No,
oh,
DDP,
DDP,
Digital Divide Partners.
Digital Digital Divide Partners.
Right.
So this is Digital Divide Partners is again a local community business, and which saw the need. So between Digital Divide Partnership, City College, and we did get some help from New York City Emergency Management and also a company called Norcom. We were able to actually put these systems together, which also included that same uh, organization that I spoke of initially, Citywide Disaster Services. They're the ones that kind of really help us to get that radio system going, and then everybody else was able to contribute their portion to it to keep it going. So at that point, uh, we're up to the Bronx, and we know that we know that we need we know that we need uh, we know that we need uh, excuse me.
Yeah, Wally's a consummate radio man. Even while he's here on the show, he is still on his radio role, receiving communiques that he's got to respond to from time to time. So do it
Okay,
again, Wally. Go ahead.
sorry about that. Okay, we we just knew that we needed to start in the Bronx, but where do you start? How do you get something like this going? Well, the local Department of Health um, organization, the Bronx Community Health Station up on Arthur Avenue, uh, decided that they wanted to start a program for uh, 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 to develop the the Bronx, to develop the Bronx. Uh, can't think of the word I want to use. Anyway, they called for a meeting, and this meeting sounded very similar to what we wanted to get started. So we went to the meeting, and actually, uh, this we were actually the only people there that came to the meeting, but we were so uh, enthused that there was someone else in the community that thought the way we thought, that we would just get it going with just two. Well, the next meeting had five, and then from then on, it just started to grow.
Mhm.
And so what we decided that the mission would be is to develop a community emergency res- response plan, um, because up to this point we have just been working, dealing with the response, but it hasn't been any real plan laid out as to who does what and how they do it and when they do it. And so uh, we decided that the whole purpose of uh, the South Bronx Emergency Network would be the creation, the development, the updating, and the implementation of a community emergency response plan. And being that trying to do something like that for the whole South Bronx would, is really, I mean, city doesn't even do that. The government doesn't even do that.
Mhm.
So we decided that we would take a small portion of the South Bronx, which we uh, selected uh, Community Board 3 in the Bronx Community Board 3, and we would do this with Community Board 3. And the reason why we selected Community Board 3, because we had some significant backing of the idea from Community Board 3. So that we figured that's the best place that we needed to get started.
Mhm.
So since then, we have been pretty much, I'd say the first year spent just developing the network, trying to get organizations and businesses, agencies, uh, any group that would actually function in an emergency, whether it's a business, whether it's a church, whether it's an agency, uh, get us all together and let's make a plan with that group. We didn't want to try to make a plan out of a book. We needed to make a real plan that people on the ground, people that's already in the work that they do in the community, a lot of these groups already have emergency plans for their organization where they are, but there's no connection between the one across the street and the one down the block. So our initiative is to connect all of these organizations and groups and bring them together, and let's plan how in an emergency each group can do what it does to contribute to the response in the emergency. And the reason why we're saying that is because basically, again, everyone has a sense of if there's something wrong, just call 911. And on a regular day, that works. That really works. The 911 system, your police department, your fire department, they're some of the best trained in the world. And even though we got problems, they're there generally in an emergency. And they do the job. I marvel at especially the fire department. Those guys are really, really good with what they do. But the bottom line is that you have 8 million people in New York City, and you only have 80,000, approximately 80,000 first responders. So anybody that can do a little arithmetic can see that it could easily, if something affected the entire city, that 80,000 would be thoroughly overwhelmed. And a matter of fact, you wouldn't even have the 80,000 because a large portion of that 80,000 would be affected by whatever that emergency is. And so they themselves would not be able to work. And then you would have some of those that look at the situation and say, they have to take care of their personal situation first. So that 80,000 may be cut in half.
Mhm.
And so that being said, that means that the community would basically be left to fend for itself. And if there is no plan, we're just talking about chaos
Mhm.
and craziness.
Yeah. No, let me stop you there for a minute, Wally. This is fascinating. So much of the emergency preparedness stuff that I'm familiar with is about your own personal and family emergency planning. But what you're talking about is expanding it to the entire community, and that is such an important thing to do. We're going to take a brief break. We're talking with Wali Abdun Noor, extraordinary emergency communications specialist and longtime pioneer in emergency preparedness on a community basis. This is WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. You're listening to Community and Technology. We're going to take a brief break and be right back. Stay tuned.
Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, war and poverty. Oh, wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. They're the ones who's coming up, and the world is in their hands. When you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it now, just you and me. Wake up all the doctors, make the old people well. They're the ones who suffer and who catch all the hair. But they don't have so very long before their judgment day. So won't you make them happy before they pass away? Wake up all the builders, time to build a new land. I know we could do it if we all lend a hand. The only thing we have to do is put it in our minds. Surely things will work out, they do it every time. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na, 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it now, just you and me. Yeah. Change it, yeah, change it, yeah, just you and me. Change it, yeah, change it. Can't do it alone, can't do it alone. Need some help, y'all, y'all. Can't do it alone, can't do it alone. Yeah, yeah. Wake up.
Okay, we're back. Community and Technology. Stu Reid, special guest Wali Abdun Noor on WHCI 90.3 FM. We're talking about emergency preparedness. And Wali has been involved in this area for almost 20 years. And he's got a special initiative going on in the South Bronx called the South Bronx Emergency Network. And before the break, Wali was telling me about the community-based emergency plans that SBN has been working on. So tell us more, Wali.
Okay, so I don't remember whether it was during the break or you mentioned it before we went on break, but you mentioned about personal emergency preparedness. I must stress that needs to be done first before anyone or for any group gets involved in community emergency preparedness. That's like when you get on an airplane and the flight attendant says, when the mask drops down, you put yours on first. I don't care if your baby is with you, your children are with you, your parents are with you, your sister's with you, your husband, your wife, you put yours on first. Because if you go down, then you're part of the problem. You could be no longer part of the solution. So we stress that before a person gets involved in community emergency planning and community emergency preparedness and community emergency management, you do your personal emergency preparedness and be strong in it. Um, and you have to keep it up. You can't make a go bag and expect that go bag that you made up 2 years ago is still good. You have to actually change your go bag as the seasons change. Because if you put a go bag together in the summer and it's needed in the winter, you're not going to have in it things that you would need, and the purpose of the go bag would not really uh, be useful. So we stress that prior to prior to getting involved into your community situation, you have to take care of your personal situation. And that goes back to when I was talking about your numbers. Um, your when I say your numbers, the numbers of your first responders, and I said that some first responders would be affected by the situation, and then others would just be taking care of their situation at home rather than coming out and getting involved. And that's what that's about, is you got to take care of you first in an emergency. So I just wanted to clarify that uh, you mentioned, like I said, I don't remember whether it was before the break or during the break, that we, most people know about personal emergency preparedness, and that is very key. And in this conversation, I just want to clarify that this conversation is not trying to uh, make a small of that at all. The only reason why we're going into the community is because even New York City Emergency Management recognizes that should New York have a major catastrophe, and especially something that may last over a long period of time, that New York City needs the community to participate in the response. And so but you can't really participate if your personal thing is not together.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. That's good.
Okay, so now, SBEN, we got started, and like I was saying, we spent the actually more than the first year, just trying to get a group together, because we really didn't want to call ourselves making a plan. And you're making a plan out of a book or what you think, or that type of thing. We wanted it to be real. We wanted to know what people need, and that they feel that they need in an emergency, um, especially those places that have made their personal emergency. They have some sense of, well, okay, if the phone is not working, I know what I need. So um, this is one of the reasons why we spent a good portion of the time at least trying to get a number of organizations, and like I said, together. Okay, so just about the time when we were getting ready to sit down and make the plan, COVID-19 came into existence. And that is kind of, just like everybody else, kind of set us back. Oh, and there he is. Great. COVID-19 came into existence, and we kind of got set back on our situation, because we were a group just starting out, and so we had went through a lot of changes trying to get involved in putting things together. We really didn't have a plan together. So what really helped us out were the groups that we brought together, and they came together and represented us in the city uh, effort to distribute PPE and food, and so we managed to uh, become a force in uh, in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
once
in a way, it sounds like the pandemic maybe helped mobilize your whole community plan.
it did,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely did. Um, so from there, now uh, we're coming up to the point now where uh, we just getting back on our feet and just getting ready to move forward. And they had the fire on 181st Street and in the Bronx, where 17 people got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And New York City Emergency Management called on SBEN to provide uh, some resources. And we were able to pull together uh, not so much uh, physical resources, but we pulled together social workers, uh, interpreters, healthcare workers,
Human resources.
human
Mm-hmm.
resources, and we had about 60 people.
Wow.
Uh, well, so we were on standby to get involved, and the city decided, well, actually, the state decided to turn that whole recovery situation into over to uh, Bronx Works, the organization Bronx Works. It's one of the largest um, community organizations in the Bronx, and so they turned it over to them. We stood by to let them know that we were available to help with the group that we had, but apparently they felt that they could handle it themselves, so we kind of disbanded
Mm-hmm.
that group. Now we are what we want to do now is really start to put the plan together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I
And
see, Wally, we've just been joined by one of your associates, Korey Chisholm. Maybe you might introduce Korey and bring him into the conversation. Well,
okay, and that's just about where I was going.
oh, okay.
um, we really are looking at now putting the plan together, and technology will be key in doing that. And Korey, from I'd say from the time that we were just going around and trying to get our organizations involved way before COVID, Korey and his group, they're one of the first groups that came in. He's part of the Seventh-day Adventist Medical Cadet Corps, and they're a phenomenal group. And I'm gonna let him um, take it from there. Let him talk about his group and you know his contribution, his group, he and his group's contribution to this effort, because they are uh, they're very instrumental in the success that we have had so far.
Okay, great. Korey Chisholm. Korey, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Good evening. It's good to be with you guys. We are just kind of pleased to, one of the things that we're focused on is ensuring that we're supporting the community as it relates to emergency response, preparedness, and recovery. So the Seventh-day Adventist Medical Cadet Corps here, we are, strategically placed within the Northeastern Conference. So we spread across 7 states, typically. So our group here in the Bronx and the Manhattan area works really closely with in bringing and moving forward the mission and the vision of South Bronx Emergency Network. So we typically are involved in anything that's related to emergency. So we have people who are nurses and public health practitioners that can respond to a medical emergency, EMT, EMS. Then we have some other logistical persons like myself to deal with public public information, communication, warehousing, and resource development and managing a service center and those types of stuff. So our group is kind of really vast, depending on the skills and what they have, and there's always continuous training for them. And so we're just pleased to just be involved in the Bronx, and it's the hope that the other platoons that we have, such as in Brooklyn and Queens areas, are also going to be involved in the COADs in their districts as well.
Okay, Wally, Korey mentioned COADs. Can you tell us a little about what that is, COADS, Wally?
Yes, COAD is an acronym for Community Organizations Active in Disaster. So again, that organization doesn't just stand for an organization as we know an organization. It stands for businesses, houses of worship, agencies, non-governmental organizations, governmental organizations, any group that will service the community in a disaster. And of course, concerned individuals that would do the same. Mm-hmm. So you have these, in other words, you have organizations generally are made up of people. COADs are made up of organizations. And so South Bronx Emergency Network is a COAD because we're made up of organizations just like Seventh-day Adventist Medical Cadet Corps. Mm-hmm. A few organizations that were made up of South Bronx, South Southeast Bronx Community Center, Claremont Community Center. We work with PSS Davidson Family Center. We work with Community Board 3. These are just a name. I don't have the whole list, but we have about 20 groups that we work together. And the whole idea of this is that each group does what they do. And we just need what they do in an emergency, because in an emergency it's the same life that you have the same needs, but they're just not there. They're confused. So the entities that provide those needs, if we can pull them together and have them function in that area, in the area that they are expertise in, then we would be able to provide some of the services that are needed for victims of an emergency.
Okay, well, I know we're kind of running short on time, but before we finish up, tell us a little bit about how folks can contribute and join and be involved in SBIN and COAD work in the South Bronx and Harlem.
Okay, the best thing that I would suggest is that at this time that they contact us at SBEN, that's SBEN .coad, COAD at gmail.com. That's SBEN.coad at gmail.com. Because we're in the point of really putting it together. Korey here, he's going to be working on getting our website. We have a website up, which is spen-inc.net.
Say that
However,
again, Wally.
SBEN-inc.net.
Okay.
However, we're looking to really develop it, and Korey here, I think he is going to be probably heading up that whole situation, and that will really be the way that we will be reaching out. We'll be connecting with social media, be connecting in social media. So we're expecting to come back when we're really functioning the way we want to function, and really let people get involved. But if they are interested in getting involved at this time, like I said, spen.coad@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Let me also just mention the WEBT website for more information
Yes.
about the WHCR emergency broadcast team. It's at webt.org. I'm sorry, it's WHCREBT, WHCREBT.org. And there you'll learn about the WHCR emergency broadcast team, and also links to emergency radio communication, links to evacuation centers, links to the city alert system, and also live broadcast from WHCR, where you'll get news and information in an emergency from the radio station. Okay, we're just about done. Any final words, Wally or Korey?
Yeah, I neglected to mention Metropolitan College of New York City.
Mhm.
They have really been helping us along the lines. They're helping us with connectivity in the Bronx, working for internet connectivity, getting free devices for those that need it, and also they're working in taking emergency preparedness to another level with getting involved with everyday emergencies such as gun violence, mental illness, and even rodent infestation.
Mhm.
So that's a whole, you don't hear about that kind of stuff in emergency management and preparedness, but that's the real deal. And we feel that the problems that you have in a community on a regular basis, if you have a shelter where people are going to come in an emergency, they're going to bring those problems with them. And the only way that you're going to be able to deal with it is that you prepare beforehand and not try to deal with it once it gets there, because it's too late then.
Mhm. Korey, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say that for me, SPEN is a good product of when communities own the issues and the problems that they're facing and respond, and we're a product of that. And that is really commendable. The Seventh Adventist Medical Cadet Corps is really here to support and to do that. And as Wally said, we are going to be having a bit more online presence soon enough. We'll have the website relaunch and have a bit more social media presence, and so we can also get some of our young people a bit more actively and involved within the emergency response in their community. So thank you guys for having us.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I want to thank Wali Abdun Noor, co-founder, founder of CERN, of the Harlem Emergency Network, of the WHCR Emergency Broadcast Team, and most recently the South Bronx Emergency Network. Thank you, Wally, for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you to Korey Chisholm, who's involved with the Seventh-day Adventist medical team that's interfacing with SBIN to help provide healthcare resources on an emergency basis. Thank both you guys, and let's do this again. Let's not wait until next year, next September. These are important issues that we need to keep in front of our community. So I want to thank you guys for the work that you're doing and for coming on Community and Technology and sharing with our audience. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. This has been WHCR, Community and Technology with Stu Reid and special guests Wali Abdun Noor and Korey Chisholm. Stay tuned for more news and information. And certainly tune in every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Community and Technology. Thanks for listening. Good night.